The last signal. The galaxy had grown quiet after the fall of humanity. For centuries, alien empires fought each other, trading victories and losses, but never fearing the return of the one species they all believed was gone. The humans had been strong once, too strong, but their worlds were burned, their fleets scattered, and their name reduced to a warning in history books. Generations passed, and soon even that warning became a story told to alien children before sleep. Beware the humans, for they never surrender. But in the far reaches of the spiral arm, something stirred. A listening post belonging to the Zeru Dominion picked up a faint transmission. At first, it was dismissed as static, the kind of cosmic background noise that haunted sensors. Yet the sound repeated, weak but steady, like a heartbeat refusing to fade. The message was fragmented, but one word stood out clear enough to freeze the room. Earth. The commander of the post, a tall insectoid creature named Varzel, narrowed his eyes. He had studied human history as a curiosity, a tale of monsters that destroyed empires before vanishing. He leaned closer to the display, listening as the weak signal pulsed again. There was no mistake. The code embedded within was human, a war code, one that had not been heard in 3,000 years. Panic spread through the crew of the listening post. Some argued it was a trap. Others whispered it was only an echo from ancient battles, but deep inside, a quiet fear began to grow. Everyone knew the humans were dangerous. Everyone knew they never stayed dead for long. The signal was traced to the edge of a black nebula, a region avoided by most fleets. Ships that entered rarely returned, claiming their systems failed and their crews went mad. The Zeru commander ordered a scout squadron to investigate. 3 sleek frigates slid into the darkness, their engines humming with nervous energy. For hours, no word came back. Only silence. Then, just before all contact was lost, one final transmission crackled through. A voice filled with static but heavy with fear. "It's real. The ship. It's still here." The feed cut to black. The listening post fell silent, no one daring to speak. Even Varzel felt his antennae shiver. If what the scouts had seen was true, then the galaxy's greatest nightmare had just awakened. Rumors spread faster than fire. From one system to another, whispers carried the same story. A human warship still lives. Some laughed, claiming it was a trick by rival empires. Others trembled, remembering the stories of human fleets, tearing apart entire armadas. In the Galactic Council halls, leaders argued, some demanding proof, others calling for immediate mobilization. But deep down, they all knew one truth. If even one human ship had survived, then no fleet in the galaxy was safe. Far away, hidden within the black nebula, a massive shadow drifted slowly between dying stars. Its hull was scarred, broken in places, patched with metal older than most empires. But it was alive. Its engines pulsed like a beating heart, slow and heavy. Across its side, barely visible through the dust, the name of the ship glowed faintly. In old human script, it was a relic, but it was not dead. And deep within, a crew of survivors carried a promise made long ago. Humanity may fall, but humanity never surrenders. The ship stirred, its systems awakening. Old weapons hummed to life, energy flowing through veins of steel. The darkness of the nebula shivered as if the universe itself remembered the terror. Somewhere in the void, the last human ship had answered the call. The signal that began as a whisper now echoed across the stars. And for the first time in millennia, the galaxy felt something it had almost forgotten: fear. The story of humans had returned, not as a myth, not as a legend, but as a living, breathing threat. One ship, one crew, standing against the stars. The last signal was no longer just a message, it was a warning, and soon every empire would learn what it meant, because humanity had refused to die, and their war was not over. The ghost of Earth. The news of the strange signal spread like wildfire across the stars. No one admitted it openly, but every empire trembled. The idea that a human ship might still exist shook even the proudest commanders. For generations, they had told themselves that humanity was gone forever. But now the whisper of their return felt like a shadow moving through every council hall, every warship bridge, every throne room. the Zeru Dominion decided to send a stronger fleet into the nebula, this time not scouts but warships heavily armed and ready for battle. Dozens of destroyers and cruisers formed up, their black hulls gleaming under starlight. Among them, Admiral Soren, a veteran who had fought many wars, stood on the command deck of his flagship. He laughed when he heard the rumors. One ship? Just one? If it exists, we will crush it, he said. But in the silence of his chambers, when no one was watching, his hands shook. The fleet entered the nebula with shields raised, weapons hot, and every sensor straining. The dark clouds swallowed them, whole turning day into endless night. For hours, nothing moved but the whisper of static. Then, without warning, the first cruiser vanished. No explosion, no wreckage, just gone. Panic rippled through the formation as ships tried to scan, but their systems flickered. A cold voice came through the comms, distorted, ancient, but human. You should not have come here. The fleet fired wildly into the dark, beams of light cutting through dust. But the shadows shifted, and something massive moved between them. For the first time, alien eyes saw it. The ship, scarred and broken, yet alive. Its human design was unmistakable. Angled steel, old markings, weapons that looked like relics yet burned with terrible power. It was not a ghost. It was real. The human warship moved with slow, deliberate grace, like a predator that had waited centuries for prey to stumble close. Railguns lit up the dark, tearing through cruisers as if they were paper. Missiles streaked like falling stars, leaving nothing but burning wrecks. Admiral Soren shouted orders, but his words drowned beneath screams and static. Every shot from the human ship carried the weight of history. Every explosion felt like vengeance long delayed. The aliens had believed humans were only stories. Now those stories were carving fire across their fleet. Ships tried to run, but engines died as the human ship hacked their systems. Others tried to hide, but nothing could escape its sensors. One by one, the mighty fleet crumbled. In less than an hour, only silence remained. The human ship drifted among the wreckage, its hull glowing faintly. Its scars told of endless battles. Its silence spoke of endless waiting. The few surviving, aliens whispered in terror as they fled. They had seen something no one was supposed to see. The ghost of Earth. In the council chambers of 100 worlds, the reports arrived. Alien leaders shouted, demanded proof, accused one another of lies. But the recordings could not be denied. A single human warship had destroyed an entire fleet. The galaxy that once laughed at the stories of humanity no longer laughed. Fear had returned, for if one ship lived, maybe others had survived too. In the shadows of the nebula, the human ship powered down again. Its engines dimmed, hiding once more in the dark. But inside, its crew stood firm, eyes hard with the fire of their ancestors. They were not ghosts. They were the last guardians of Earth's memory, and they had sworn an oath no alien could ever understand. They would fight, even if the whole galaxy stood against them. They would fight, because they were human. The ghost of Earth had revealed itself, and now the galaxy would never be the same. One against thousands. The story of the ghost of Earth spread faster than light. Every empire, every council, every warlord now knew the truth. Humanity was not gone. A single ship had survived, and it had crushed a fleet like it was nothing. Panic turned into action. The galaxy united in a way it never had before. Old enemies sat at the same table, their claws and fangs hidden, their voices sharp with fear. The order was simple: destroy the human warship before it could become more than a legend. Hundreds of fleets were called, thousands of ships assembled. It was the largest force the galaxy had seen in living memory, and all of it was for one target. Inside the nebula, the human crew prepared. They were few, their ship old, their weapons scarred, but their eyes burned with something no alien could understand, a fire that refused to die. They listened to the chatter of enemy fleets closing in, tens of thousands of voices swearing to end them. The captain stood before his crew, his voice calm, his words sharp. They think we are weak. They think we are finished, but today we show them what it means to face humanity. The ship stirred, its ancient engines roaring awake. Shields crackled with power. Weapons lit up like the hearts of stars. The nebula shook as the last human ship moved forward to meet its fate. The alien fleets closed in from every direction. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, an endless ocean of steel and fire. They believed the battle would be quick. They believed one human ship could not stand against thousands. But when the first wave struck, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. Railguns fired, cutting through cruisers with impossible precision. Dark matter cannons thundered, ripping dreadnoughts in half. The ship danced between storms of fire, bleeding sparks, taking wounds but never falling. Every alien commander watched in disbelief. The ship should have been destroyed 100 times, but it kept fighting. Inside, the crew moved like one body, hands on controls, eyes locked on targets. They had trained for this moment since birth. Their ancestors had sworn an oath, and now that oath burned in every shot they fired. One alien, Admiral, shouted across comms, "It's impossible. One ship cannot do this." But the truth was there in the wreckage of his fleet. It was not just a ship. It was humanity itself refusing to kneel. The battle stretched on, hours turning into endless fire. For every human missile, 10 alien ships fell. For every wound the ship took, it roared back with fury. The galaxy's greatest fleets were burning, and yet the human ship still stood, battered but alive. At last, silence fell. The alien armadas, once countless, were reduced to broken hulks drifting in the void. The lone human ship floated among them, its hull torn, its lights flickering but its flag still standing. It had faced thousands and it had not died. The survivors fled, their voices shaking as they carried the tale. The legend was no longer a whisper. Now it was a scream that echoed across the stars. One human ship had fought the galaxy, and the galaxy had nearly lost in the hidden councils of empires. Fear turned to dread. If one ship could do this, what if there were more? What if humanity was waiting in the dark, ready to return? The aliens had sought to erase the past, but the past had come back with fire, and it was not finished. Among the wreckage, the human ship drifted, its engines dim but steady, its crew bloodied but unbroken. They had stood against thousands, and they were still here, still human, still unyielding. The galaxy thought they had destroyed humanity, but now they understood the truth. You cannot destroy what refuses to die. The heart of steel, the galaxy could not understand how the ship had survived. Thousands of warships had fallen, yet one human vessel still drifted among the wreckage, broken but alive, scarred but unbowed. To the aliens it was madness. To the humans aboard, it was destiny. Inside the ship, the air was heavy with smoke and fire. Sparks fell from broken panels. Steel walls groaned as if they could collapse at any moment. But the crew moved with purpose. Every step, every hand, every command carried the weight of an unshakable vow. They were the children of survivors, descendants of the last warriors of Earth. Their blood carried the memory of a world that no longer existed, a world that had burned but had not been forgotten. The captain walked through the corridors, his uniform torn, his face lined with exhaustion. He paused at the memorial wall, a place carved into the steel long ago, names etched by hand, names of ancestors who had fought in the final days of Earth. He touched the wall gently, and the crew around him fell silent. "These names are not just history," he said, voice steady. "They are the fire that keeps us alive," the crew answered with one voice. "Humanity never surrenders." In the command deck, a young engineer worked tirelessly on the engines. Her hands were burned, her eyes red with fatigue, but when asked why she did not rest, she only smiled. "My grandfather died fighting for this ship," she whispered. "I will not be the one to let it fall." The weapons officer, scarred and silent, loaded the last of the dark matter shells, each one a relic from Earth's golden age. He muttered under his breath as he worked. "For every city they burned, for every child they took, we give them this." The ship itself seemed alive. Every groan of its steel, every pulse of its engines felt like a heartbeat. It had become more than a machine, It was history forged into metal, memory bound into circuits, and rage sealed into every weapon. The aliens called it a ghost, but the humans knew the truth. It was not a ghost. It was a heart of steel. Outside, alien fleets gathered again, this time larger, stronger, determined to end the nightmare. But the human crew did not fear them. They were tired, wounded, outnumbered, but their eyes burned with the same light as their ship. They were the last echo of Earth, and they would fight until the stars themselves went dark. On the bridge, the captain stood tall, his voice calm even as warnings blared. "They think this ship is only steel," he said. "But it is more. It is the memory of our dead, the promise of our future, the soul of humanity." His crew answered with silence, not because they doubted, but because they believed too deeply for words. The ship powered up again. Engines roared, weapons glowed. The nebula shook as if the void itself recognized its defiance. The aliens who saw it trembled, for they realized the truth. They were not fighting a ship. They were fighting the spirit of a species that refused. To die, the heart of steel beat stronger than ever, and the war was only beginning. The trap in the stars. The alien empires had failed again and again, but they were not ready to give up. If one human ship could destroy fleets, then it had to be destroyed at any cost. This time, they built a plan so vast, so careful, that even the bravest commanders believed it could not fail. They chose the graveyard of a dead star, a system where the sun had collapsed into a silent black sphere. Gravity twisted the light. The orbits of broken planets spun like knives. It was a place no sane captain would enter willingly. Perfect for a trap, hundreds of fleets waited. Hidden in the shadows of shattered moons and drifting rocks, dreadnoughts lurked behind gas clouds. Cruisers floated like predators in the dark. The aliens had learned. They did not rush this time. They waited, patient as hunters. When the human ship came, they would surround it, crush it, and end the nightmare forever. The signal was sent, a false transmission, a cry for help, disguised to sound human. "We are survivors. Help us." The message whispered through the void. It was bait, and they believed the humans would not resist, for humans never ignored a cry for help. Inside the ship, the crew listened. The captain frowned as the message repeated. The engineer whispered, "It could be a trap," the weapons officer muttered. "It is a trap." But the captain's eyes narrowed. "If there is even one human voice left out there, we answer." The ship moved, slow but steady, engines burning against the pull of the dead star. The nebula faded behind them, and the graveyard of broken worlds opened ahead. The trap closed, silent and merciless. The alien admirals smiled as the human vessel entered. They believed victory was already theirs, but inside the human ship, no one smiled. They knew the danger. They felt the weight of the trap, and yet they pressed forward because they were human. The first wave struck, a wall of fire from every direction. Lasers cut across space. Missiles filled the void. The black star itself lit with the fury of the fleets. Any other ship would have been destroyed instantly, but the human vessel twisted through the storm, taking wounds, giving fire, refusing to break. The aliens tightened the circle, confident. One admiral laughed. "It bleeds. It cannot escape. It will die here." But then the ship did the unthinkable. Instead of fleeing, it accelerated straight into the heart of the trap, straight into the mouth of the dead star. Panic swept through the alien ranks. "Stop it!" voices shouted. "Cut it off! Destroy it!" But the human ship was faster, bolder, more desperate than any could imagine. It wove between fleets, carving holes in the circle, tearing through lines meant to hold forever. The heart of steel thundered, the crew silent but fierce. Every action said the same thing. We do not run. We fight. The dead star pulled stronger, its gravity dragging everything closer. Alien ships crashed into each other, torn apart by their own panic. The trap they had built became a cage for themselves, and in the center of it the human ship roared like a burning sun. When the smoke cleared, when the wreckage drifted, the human vessel still lived, scarred but unbroken. It had walked into the trap and shattered it. The aliens had believed they were hunters, but they were prey, and the galaxy now knew the truth: you cannot trap humanity, you can only awaken it. Fire that never dies. The galaxy had thrown everything into the trap, and still the human ship lived. The wreckage of thousands of alien vessels floated like broken bones around the dead star. But the battle was not over. If anything, it was only beginning. Every empire sent reinforcements, carriers the size of cities, destroyers black as night, fighters buzzing like endless swarms. It was a tide of steel and fire. And in the center of it, one human ship burned like a beacon. It should have been broken. It should have been drifting, but instead it moved with fury, as if the ship itself had a soul. Inside, alarms screamed, hull plates cracked, oxygen leaked from broken seals. Yet, the crew did not falter. Their hands moved fast, their eyes locked on the fight. They had nothing left but this battle, and for them, that was enough. The captain stood tall at the command deck. "Every empire fears us," he said, his voice steady, and they should. The crew answered with silence, a silence sharper than any cheer, because they knew, they believed this was not just a fight for survival. This was a fight for history. The ship's railguns thundered again, projectiles the size of towers, screamed across the void, tearing battleships in half. Missiles streaked like burning comets, punching through carriers until they burst like suns. And then the darkest weapon of all came alive, the old dark matter cannons, relics from Earth's final days. They glowed with a cold light, then fired. Entire sections of space folded, alien, fleets torn apart as if reality itself betrayed them. The aliens screamed in disbelief. "No ship can fight like this," they cried. But the truth was in the fire. The human ship did not fight like a ship. It fought like a memory, a curse, a promise. It fought like the will of a species that refused to fade. Every strike cost it dearly. The hull burned, weapons cracked, engines bled sparks. But still it moved. Still it fought. Like a wolf tearing apart the pack even as it bled. The crew pushed, themselves beyond limits, hands blistered, lungs burning, eyes heavy with exhaustion. Yet they did not stop. They could not stop. One young pilot turned to the captain, voice trembling. "Why do we keep fighting?" she asked, "when the galaxy will never let us live?" The captain's eyes hardened. "Because if we stop, humanity dies, and we will not die." The fire spread, not only through the ship's weapons, but through the galaxy's heart. Rumors turned into belief. Belief turned into terror. Every empire that sent fleets began to whisper the same words. If one ship can do this, what if there are more? The battle raged for days, a storm of endless fire. The alien fleets came in waves, and waves were broken. The human ship should have been ash, but it lived because its fire was not just steel and fuel. It was spirit. It was rage. It was love for a world long gone. It was humanity. When the last wave broke and silence fell again, the human vessel drifted, scarred beyond recognition. But its light still burned, its engine still pulsed, its flag still stood. The galaxy had thrown fire to kill it. But the fire had not killed it. The fire had become it. And now the galaxy understood a truth they had buried for centuries. Humanity was not only a species. Humanity was a fire that never dies. The ship that refused to die, the galaxy was broken. Fleets burned, admirals lost, and entire empires shaken to their core. But still, they would not stop. For they knew if the human ship lived, then their future was uncertain. So they built one last weapon, the largest dreadnought ever created, a warship forged from the metals of 3 suns, powered by reactors that could light a world. It was called the Apex, the pride of every empire, and its only purpose was to end humanity's ghost. The day came when the human ship drifted into open space once more. Battered, scarred, nearly broken but alive, its crew stood ready, exhausted yet unyielding. They had faced fleets, armadas, traps, and fire, but now before them waited the Apex, a monster larger than anything they had ever seen. The two ships faced each other in silence, the void between them heavy, like the calm before a storm. Every Alien eye across the galaxy watched every screen, every transmission, every heart waiting for the end. The Apex fired first. Its cannons roared with the power of a dying star. Energy storms ripped across the void. The human vessel shook, shields collapsing, decks tearing, but it did not fall. The crew clung to their stations, voices steady. "Hold the line," the captain commanded. And they held. The human ship answered. Railguns screamed, missiles streaked, dark matter cannons thundered. The Apex trembled, its shields flaring, but it endured. The battle became a storm unlike any before. Space itself twisted with fire and death. For every strike the Apex delivered, the human ship returned it twice. For every wound it took, it rose again. The galaxy watched, stunned, as the impossible happened once more. Inside, the crew bled. Systems failed. Oxygen ran thin, but no one abandoned their post. They remembered Earth. They remembered their ancestors. And they fought not for victory, but for honor, for memory, for the promise that humanity would never kneel. The Apex pushed harder, its reactors blazing. The human ship cracked open, hull torn to its bones. But still it moved. Still it fired. Still it refused to die. At last the captain gave the final order. "All power to weapons," he said calmly. The crew obeyed without hesitation. The ship poured its last breath, its last fire, its last fury into one strike. The dark matter cannons glowed brighter than ever. The void itself shook. And then, the Apex cracked. The pride of the galaxy split apart, flames devouring its core. The dreadnought that was meant to end humanity died screaming in silence. The human ship drifted in the aftermath. Its hull broken, its lights dim, its crew barely alive. But it was still there, still burning, still human. Across the stars no one laughed, no one doubted. The legend was no longer a story, it was truth, carved in wreckage and blood. The galaxy finally understood. You cannot kill humanity, you cannot bury their spirit. For even in the darkest night, even against the greatest odds, the human fire will rise. The ship had refused to die, and through it, humanity lived forever.